Wow.
We are live. We have been goofing off all morning, so
I didn't even interrupt you for this thing because I
Or
thought, well, better to get to it.
it's been
or
40
afternoon
minutes
for
of just like normally we'd start 40-ish minutes ago, and now we're just like,
yeah,
All
whatever.
right, so I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna kick this off. I just want you
Yeah.
all to be ready. This is Literary Roadhouse, where we read one short story once a week, and I'm Andy.
I'm an ace.
And I'm Gerald.
Oh boy, this week we read a story. Wait, here's my notes. We read "You Tell Me" by Clare Sestanovich. If you haven't read the story, good for you. And if you have read it, I'm
Oh my
sorry.
god. Wow.
You know, we picked these stories blind, so I'm not morally culpable, but I still feel sympathy for you. So, this is a story about Janet. Janet has a dead husband and two daughters who live in Berlin and New York. She buys a new television remote from a teenager, then travels to New York because her son in law calls to let her know that her daughter, Sasha, a New York attorney, is suffering from despair because she is an attorney in New York, which is literally the clearest case of cause and effect that has ever been put into the printed word. Rather than address the problem, quit being a lawyer, Janet makes awkward small talk with her family, eavesdrops on some ladies in the park, steals somebody's lunch, and goes to a baseball game where Sasha flips off the Zumo screen or whatever it's called. The end.
Jumbotron.
Zumo screen, I think, is what they call it. That's it. That's the story.
I think
Or
technically
is
it's not a
this-
Jumbotron at a baseball park. Anyway.
Who cares? Nobody does.
Well,
Gerald says he loved this story, so let's go with Gerald's positivity after that.
woohoo. Well, the, on the surface, the thing about this story is that it's fairly downbeat in lots of respects, but it did the thing that I wanted last week's story to do, which was the slightly goofy thing, like when she stole somebody else's lunch. That was goofy. That made me smile. That's good. So there's that, but also it has themes. This here story, it has themes, and I saw them and I recognized them, and I liked them, and I like the story because of that, because it made me think. I don't like novels that make me think, because I like films for entertainment, but short stories are good to make me think, and this one made me think a lot. So
Okay,
there.
Gerald, can you go a bit deeper? What were the themes?
Well, there were a couple of things I thought. One of the themes was having. I'll do the other one first. One of the things was not fitting in. So it struck me that Janet was deliberately not fitting in with societal norms. And doing sort of goofy things like parking her car across the parking spaces and across the white lines. Whereas her daughter, Sasha, was fitting in, but she didn't want to fit in because she didn't have. Now, let me have a little think. So, yes, Sasha's a lawyer. It wasn't a passion. What she wanted was a purpose. So I think what the author's bringing out a difference between a job which is a passion and a job which is functional and earns money. So, and just after that, it says her husband, Janet's husband, never had a career exactly, but he'd always had a job. So then she's defining the difference between a career, a passion project, and something which buys you food. So I like that, and that appeared several times through the story. So there was another, yeah. So Rachel, yeah, when she was talking to Rachel's voice was loud and present. They tell you to dream big, shoot for the stars, etc. But Sasha didn't. Now she has all these plans but no desires. So the difference between plans to do things and desires that sort of are more passionate. So that's it. I'm going to stop talking now.
Yeah. I agree that's the theme. That's also where the title comes up, right? Where then Janet says, "Is it too late?" And Rachel's like, "You tell me," which kind of throws it a bit in Janet's face, like, "You're older. What about you? What are you living out your desires? Do you have passions?" Yeah, and also you're the one that's there who's looking at Sasha and can, you're closer to the problem right now. Yeah, I think I'm between you guys where I did not think the story was bad the way Andy seems to say. I thought it had a lot of really great moments. It was focused on a particular theme. The other time where passion comes up is in the park where there's the woman whose husband is recovering, but their sex life hasn't recovered. So she's like, you hear about this when the passion goes away from marriage. You hear it from old people, she says, which is, and then her friend's like, it doesn't have to be. She said that it's supposed to be normal. And then her friend is about to say there is no normal, but then gets cut off. Anyway, so like that does come up. Yeah, I think for me, I think the reason why I'm not more excited about it, even though there was a lot of places that I really liked, a lot of moments I really liked, I thought the writing was really good, is because I think it's like I said last week, I'm just really exhausted by like the modern focus right now. It's still, the central focus here is this depression. And it's just like, yeah, I'm just saturated, but it's really not the story's fault or this author's fault. I'm just really tired. Yeah. I just want to like something different. Like this is a lot of what modern writing is right now. Short story writing.
But also it's this story's fault. And it is this author's fault.
Why?
Well, okay. Actually, we haven't had a guest star in a while. Can we have our people contact her people? I'd love to have her on the show. I've got a couple questions I wrote down that I would like to ask Claire. Here, let me pull them up here. There's a couple questions I got for her. Where do you get the nerve?
Oh my God. Why? Why are you doing this right now?
How dare you? Because she wrote teen-agers.
I noticed that bothered you. But also get over it.
No. Is she up on her ivory tower with her teen-agers?
Or is it a character choice? Is it because this woman is older when she grew up? That's how you wrote teenager.
Yeah, you know what it is? Garbage.
All right.
It's garbage.
Like,
and dumb.
No. Is that it? Is that all you dislike?
Well, and also, like, what's the fucking dilemma in this story? Is like, my attorney daughter is consumed by despair. Like, yeah.
I feel like you've just been triggered by the legal career.
Yeah, because if you present it as a problem, there's a very clear solution, an immediate and obvious solution, which is quit that job.
She's not going to quit that job because
Janet going to kill herself. Those are the two options.
Yeah, Janet has always been planning for stability, not passions, not desire. That's the whole point. Like, you're right that Sasha getting here might seem inevitable. She has been afraid of the kind of precarious lifestyle and livelihood that her parents had, right? Because Janet's like, well, I mean, he mostly had a job. Like, we didn't come that close to collapse, did we? Like, okay, if those are the way you're phrasing this, I think Sasha has a point. So Sasha sort of like overcompensating for that was like, what is the surest, most stable bet that I can do? And it has sapped her life of joy. And this is a trap that is familiar and that many people suffer from. And it's not easy to break out of because it's terrifying to do so. And that's the story.
The problem in the story. No one's saying like, oh, you should quit. Because that should be the first thing Janet says when she gets off of the plane. Like, oh, you're miserable. Quit. Do something else.
Yeah, it's not that easy because people have a lot of fears. You got to get over the fears.
Yourself. Those are the two things that are going to happen to Sasha.
Wow.
She's going to quit or she's going to kill herself.
Andy, would you have the strong of a reaction if the career was like banking? I feel like the fact that it's the legal profession really gets it to you personally, given your history. And that's really what's coming through here.
Well,
this is a therapy session. I think
this is his therapy session. This is why people are writing these stories, so that someone like Andy can read it and work through all their hatred.
Ouch. Wow.
The hater rate is strong.
I just think it's very clear what the answer is. And nobody mentions it. They just steal someone's lunch instead.
That was funny.
Well, and that's the other thing. Janet's not really doing anything for her daughter because she doesn't know how. And like part of it is because, as she says at the beginning, it's like this is not my, like, she has that whole line about people refer to their kids as their adult children, but Janet's just an adult. She's married. She has a whole career. She has a whole life. And I kind of respect that distance where she's like, how am I supposed to tell this fully formed person, right? Like, just because she's my daughter, I'm supposed to come in here and say, this is what you must do, which I would not do for any other adult, right? Like, that's, so I respect that. But also, like, Janet doesn't even try, really, like, at all. Which is sort of, I guess she feels a bit helpless too. Like, what is she supposed to do? Remember, she's trying to talk to her at the bed, and Sasha's just like under the sheets.
Yeah, texting
the whole time. Yeah, like,
because work, because she has to check her emails.
Yeah,
and they're like,
yeah,
on 2 phones.
I don't know.
I do think putting it from Janet's point of view instead of Sasha's made the story better, because I think if we were in Sasha's point of view, it'd be really hard to focus on the main thing.
Right, that would just be despair. Like, what's...
Yeah.
Sure. It's technically a story this way. Good job there. The kind of story a teen...
Andy, pretend she's in banking.
Just
pretend she's in banking and see if your mood changes. She's a hedge fund manager.
Get over it.
No, you should also quit that. Like,
she does wealth management for rich people in Manhattan.
That's a bad thing to do too. Quit.
She sells bonds. Anyway, so yeah. The other thing I thought was pretty interesting is I think also Janet, being in her point of view, she feels a bit cold. Like, whenever she thinks about her husband, you don't get any sense of how she felt about him in any way. And then when she talks about both of her daughters, like, there's no like warmth in the way she thinks about her family members. But she's not like antagonistic. She does not dislike them, but she feels like it just, you don't feel the bond you would expect in familial relationships, which I thought was an interesting choice. Because then it made her inaction seem almost inevitable. It almost makes you wonder, like, Rachel, why did you think Janet was going to do a good job with this? Like,
yeah,
this seems like a chronic inability.
Well, I got the impression, and maybe this is me reading too much into it again, but like, I thought Janet was more like an imposter syndrome sort of deal, right? Like, who are they? These are just some adults. I'm just muddling through. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I've got these couple adults over here who need my advice. All right. I'll go eavesdrop on some ladies in the park and steal someone's lunch. That's basically what I'm good for.
And be a bit horrified about it too. She's like, I know so much about their lives. Why aren't they embarrassed? And then she thinks about asking her son-in-law, tell me about your marriage, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
And Rachel's a bit the same way, isn't she? Rachel wants to, tells her to go and see Sasha, but doesn't think of going over herself, or doesn't say, I'd love to go over, but I can't just at the moment, or whatever. She just, Mum, go and see.
I think the line was, I'm not going to look it up, but I think the line was, you have to go, right? Or like something like that. It's like, you've got to do it, Janet.
Not me. I think, because I obviously wasn't triggered by the fact that she's a lawyer at all. Doesn't bother me. It's a story, after all. And
this isn't about you, Andy. But I'm glad you're having a therapy session.
Yeah. No, I think it's making it worse. And also, I think Janet wants to affect change as well, because she's way down here. It says something about right. Because Sasha says, I refreshed the page 100 times. What do I think is going to change? And then a little bit of an internal monologue about change. It had happened to her, of course. She'd grown up, she'd grown old, she'd stopped eating meat, she'd started again everything except lamb. Just sort of clever writing. But I think she can affect change in her own life to no great event. I mean, nothing much changes in her life. In what she does, she just does little things, little changes, and little bits and pieces that she does. But she feels that the world around her is sort of happening, and she's not part of it. She feels distant from it. But I think she can't see why Sasha doesn't try to change something. Why she doesn't. Why nothing. The husband, Danny, was it Danny? Danny doesn't try to change anything either. They just both Danny and Sasha are just going through on this sort of treadmill of depression or anxiety. And Danny seems okay. Danny's working from home with his computery stuff. So there's it seems like there's nothing in that partnership that wants to change that situation. And I think Janet feels that she can affect change, even in little ways, but she can affect change her own life. But obviously she can't with her daughter.
Mm-hmm. And that's why she steals the food, right? Like she can do something.
Yeah. He does things.
And even that moment in the baseball, like when they're at the stadium and Janet is going to go to the bathroom or to get a snack. And then her daughter is like, oh, alone? And she's like she rebuffs in like a way where she's like, yeah, right. Like this feeling of just like, just not wanting to feel limited by the way that society sees her, right? Like there's the guy at the store who barely notices her. There's the women at the park who pity her. Her own daughter is like, can you really go to the bathroom alone? So she's also like, her life, all the change that happened was already heralded by some big change before it, which is that passage that Gerald just mentioned. And then now here she is in old age and everyone is treating her in a very particular way that I think she's like, chafing against a bit as well. Like she doesn't feel empowered
part
in any
of
way.
part of society. Like when they're at baseball, she said the crowd's cheers and boos were stage directions for a scene she didn't belong in. So it's quite a clear representation that she's like a bit like a fish out of water. So rather than just feel awkward, she goes and drinks some beer. That's a good thing, surely.
Yeah.
Drinking beer is never wrong.
Okay.
Witty Memory. This is weird. Andy didn't like this story.
No, and I wouldn't recommend it to any teen-agers either.
All right. So, yeah. There was also just a lot of, I really like the line about her husband hadn't died old or young. It wasn't clear if he had reached the age where you could say he lived a full life. I really like that. That was really good. There was a lot of sentences where I was just like, nice.
Yeah, some of the sentences were fine. I think
really good.
We should put that on the blurb on her website. Some of the sentences
you're
were fine.
So spicy and aggressive today. It makes me uncomfortable. Like it was like you're acting like it is like a dumpster fire. It is not.
Some of the sentences were fine.
We have a comment on our live stream from Glue Drops. Here we go.
Yeah, I agree. At the end, Janet was surprised to discover that she had begun to cry. I also thought that the she was ambiguous, and I couldn't tell if it was intentional or not. The first time I read it, I thought, I'm pretty sure she means Sasha. She's seeing Sasha cry up on the screen. And then I was like, maybe it's Janet. Maybe it's both. But yeah, I agree it was ambiguous. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Yes, and the broken face.
That's why I think, yeah. At first, I'm like, it's got to be Sasha, but I don't know.
Yeah, and when she says, then the camera quickly cuts away, the game resumed. There's like a sort of inevitability of life continuing. No matter what you do, no matter what change you try to affect, you can change your own circumstances, your own situation slightly, but life does continue.
You might say life finds a way.
Life finds a way. You could say that.
Yeah. I feel like imagine, just like put yourself in you're not reading the story. You don't know these people. You're at a baseball game. You've probably had a few beers. You're eating a bunch of food you shouldn't eat and you're going to regret. it's just like messing up your stomach as you're eating it. But you're having a great time, and then all of a sudden the screen cuts to this woman who's just like sobbing and like gives the finger. It's kind of funny a little bit, even if it's like really sad. Of course, the camera cuts away like, okay, don't know what's happening there. Yeah, there's like, if you put yourself in that moment, you're like, well, and it happens.
Yeah.
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 All right. Anything else you guys want to say?
Andy's not going to say anymore.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm being
No.
petulant like a teenager.
Oh my goodness. Well, at least you recognize the petulance.
Just once Andy is the sort of person, once he gets hold of something, he does not let go of it.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Facts.
No. I just really liked it. Yes, it was a bit of a misery story again, but I liked the fact that somebody was trying to change things. Somebody was doing something a bit different. It wasn't just this is terrible and this is terrible and which is like last week.
Well, just barely trying to change it. Just barely.
Yeah. But she seems
Meekly.
to be having fun. And she bought a new remote control. That was good.
Yeah.
Well, unless she did try to lock her car with it. That was funny. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's real funny for the first paragraph before we got to the teenagers.
All right. Yeah, I do definitely. Like I said, good solid story, but I am exhausted with the focus on mental health all the time, and because I know it's important and it's in a conversation that helps a lot of people, but like after a while it's just it's saturated.
Yeah, sometimes you want to go and see that blockbuster film where you can just have a good old time and not think too much.
Yeah, or make me think about like, change it. What if it wasn't this world? What if it was a different world? Like, just take me someplace new. All right. So shall we do ratings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Should we sandwich Andy in the middle?
Yes. I'll go 5 for me.
Okay.
That's good.
I want to preface my rating
Uh-oh.
by saying everything we said in our last week's discussion, I think, applies to this story as well. But for me, it failed to pull me out of the thing where I hate it. I think there was a lot of really nice sentences, especially at the beginning, before I got way turned off by the teenagers. And that was really enough to sour me on the whole thing. Just
wow.
Apparently
so. I know. Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is like, I guess for this type of story right now, I don't have a very high tolerance. So if you stick a hyphen in teenager, it doesn't matter what else you do well. So I'm glad that you guys are here to give it a higher score, because I think probably it deserves that in some objective way. But I hated it.
Oh my God.
Fiery passion. So
Okay.
Objectively, it deserves something like the score you guys are going to get it. But this is Andy's score, and Andy is going to give it a 1. A
Okay.
1.
Oh my God.
Worst.
I am
But,
so...
You guys
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
we score our own scores and
Subjective.
And we said right at the beginning, hundreds and hundreds of episodes ago, we're allowed to not like a story.
Yeah.
So that's good.
I'm coming in with a 4.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Okay, so next week we are reading The Specialty of the House by Stanley Ellen. And I'm excited because one of our longtime listeners, Mark, recommended this. And he was also the person who had recommended A Witch's Guide to Escape, a practical compendium of portal fantasies, which we loved.
Yeah, that was real
Remember
good.
that one? God,
That was
good.
real good. Hey,
So trusting his taste.
You know who was in that? Some teenagers.
Yeah.
Just regular teenagers.
Oh, we have I love this rating from the comment section. 4.7 out of 5. I like the 0.7. Gonna read more of her works. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to a discussion and Andy's therapy session about a legal career that he quit years ago.
Just quit.
But of course, the listener has scored out of 5, and that's wrong. Scoring
Well,
out of
that's
6.
the
out of
listener
6.
scoring metric. That's a different metric.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
They do their own thing.
Oh, okay, excellent.
They can do whatever they want. They could give it, a 20,
7
I'm sure.
peanuts out of 14 donkeys. What's the conversion
right.
rate? I don't know. That's their
Hey,
metric.
I'd like to give that score. That sounds a good score.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right. So next week, The Specialty of the House by Stanley Ellen. But before you go, tell us the funniest thing you've ever seen on a sports ball jumbotron in our Facebook discussion group, the Literary Roadhouse Readers. And we, like Janet, fear obsolescence. Help keep us relevant by leaving a review on iTunes and contributing to our podcast expenses at patreon.com/literary roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with a stranger whose lunch you stole, you animal. Until next time, read a good story.
there's a story there.
Oh, 5.3 out of
6.
6. You adjusted the score.
That's the conversion rate.
That's the
Very
conversion rate. I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the conversion.
Thank you, Glue Drops. Yes, 5 points. That's a good score. See,
Yeah.
there's a sensible person.
There you go.
Not someone that's traumatized by the construction of a word.
I know.
Hyphen ager? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Move
All right.
on.
End broadcast.